Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Nordic Aesir Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. It's been a good while since the last update to the Nordic deck, which was around the time we got some more support for the Nordics a good year ago, including some new monsters, spells, and traps. I always like keeping the deck up to date just with some of the ratio changes I make to the deck with some of the numbers for the monsters and spells, with the big focus still being able to get out Golvig, the Link 1 monster that can help to set up the majority of your Nordic summons by being able to summon out 3 different Nordic monsters. But the new spell and traps we've had for a good while now help also being able to use cards like Gull and Bursty to count as the specific tuners, and then using some of the other cards like Special Summon Power off of our spell, and then Monster Effect Negation of our opponent's cards using the trap. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. We're running 3 copies of Nordic Beast, Gull and Bursty. For a synchro summon, you can substitute this card for any Nordic tuner. You can only use each of the following effects of Gull and Bursty once per turn. If it's normal or special summon, you can special summon 1 Nordic monster from your hand. And you can target 1 Nordic monster in your graveyard, except for Gull and Bursty, and add to your hand. So with this card, you have all your setup right then and there, just being able to special summon a Nordic monster from your hand off of Gull and Bursty, and then the add back power as well. So depending on what you summoned off of your initial Link 1, if you have the proper monsters in your graveyard for the add back off of Gull and Bursty, that could be what you need for the special summon and setup, because the other Nordic Beast, Ivaldi, that we run, if you control an Aesir or Nordic monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normal special summon, you can add 1 Nordic Relic card from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Nordic Smith Ivaldi once per turn. So the Nordic Relics you can add can either be your Nordic Relic Gungnir or the Nordic Relic Svalin to your hand for you then to set up on your field. But the main play comes in the form of Gull and Bursty, summoning out 1 monster, adding back Ivaldi, special summoning out Ivaldi, and then there is your level 10 synchro monster ready to go, all from the setup of 2 cards for your deck. And then also, I run 2 copies of Alvis, the Nordic Alfor. This could honestly be a 3 of. If you were to run a 3rd copy of this card, you can drop the number of Effect Veiler that I'm running when we get to the hand trap lineup to 2, and then just run 3 copies of Alvis for this spot. If only this card is banished by the effect of a Nordic Link monster, you can send to the graveyard 1 Nordic monster you control and 2 Nordic monsters from your deck whose total levels equal 10, and special summon 1 Aesir monster from your extra deck. If an Aesir monster in your possession is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card deck, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 Aesir monster from your extra deck with a different name from the cards in your graveyard. So while giving you another special summon of an Aesir monster, it can also help just counting as a special summon for an Aesir monster by sending the other proper cards, just needing this card to be banished by a Nordic Link monster to do so, with the only one we have for the deck being our Golvig, the Nordic Ascendant. And then I also run the 2 copies of Tangjoster of the Nordic Beasts. More special summon power: when a monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. And once per turn, when this defense card on the field is changed to attack position, you can special summon 1 Nordic monster from your deck in face-up defense except for your Tangjoster of the Nordic Beasts. But the main play comes in the form of your Gull and Bursty, being able to have the perfect target with your Tangjoster onto the field for that summon, and then the add back and special summon of Ivaldi gives you your level 10 synchro play right then and there for any of the Nordic monsters you needed. And then for some of the one-ofs for the Nordics, the 1 copy of your Dverg, the Nordic Alfar, 1 copy of Goldfax, the Nordic Beast, the 1 Vanidus of the Nordic Ascendant, and the 1 copy of Mimir, the Nordic Ascendant. These are all just varying levels of monsters to run for some of the other plays in the deck. We have some of our level 4 options along with our level 4 tuner, level 2 monsters, all adjusting for a potential summon of one of our needed Nordic monsters onto the field as well, having the additional tuners, and then just the lower level monsters. But also these cards can just be used for the Link 1 play of Golvig onto the field, just by normal summoning this card out and then going for the summon of your other monsters using your Link Monsters effect. And then also the 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and the 3 copies of Effect Veiler to finish off the main deck monsters. As I said before, if you wanted to run a 3rd copy of Alvis, you can take out 1 copy of Effect Veiler for a 3rd copy of this Nordic monster. And moving on now to the spells, I run 3 copies of Nordic Relic, Yugioh. I probably butchered that name, but honestly, they did not make it the easiest Nordic Relic to pronounce. This card can also be searched off of our Evaldi, since when it's just normal or special summon, you can add 1 Nordic Relic card from your deck to your hand, which then your Nordic Relic spell can act as a special summon of a Nordic monster from your deck. You cannot special summon from the extra deck except for Azir monsters, which really isn't the limit, because once you use this card, that may as well be the final monster you need for your synchro summon. And also, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add 1 Nordic monster from your deck to your hand, then shuffle 1 card from your hand into the deck. So that might also be the final card. You can only use 1 Nordic Relic effect per turn. No one wants that turn, but that could be the potential card you need also for your Gull and Bursty to special summon from your hand onto the field as well, just giving you a more direct search for your Tangnoster from your deck to your hand. And then also running 3 copies of Hippo Carnival. This card is really, really good in the deck just because you can chain it to the response of the activated effect of your Gullveig of the Nordic Ascendant. When this card is link summoned, you can banish up to 3 cards from your hand and or field and special summon that main Nordic monster from your deck in defense. So you can activate Gullveig, chaining your Hippo Carnival. The chain will resolve backwards, summoning you 3 of your Hippo tokens onto the field. Then when you summon out those Hippo tokens onto the field, you can then banish them for the cost, with only having to use 1 card in your hand for the total banish cost of your Gullveig, and then being able to, summon out those monsters and not being restricted with your Hippo Carnival anymore, since you have all of the tokens gone off of the field for that initial summon. And then I also run 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity. There's a chance this card might get hit on the ban list if this video was made, before the ban list was released. You can always adjust the number of Pot of Prosperity with some other cards, like the next spell we're running, or Monster Reborn, Foolish Burial, you name it. You have all those cards to replace with this card. Even if you don't have the card, Monster Reborn and Foolish Burial are other potential cards to take out of the deck. But also the 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, so you can send your Nordic Relic spell to the graveyard and have the banish option to add a Nordic monster as a search. Since you only get 1 Nordic Relic effect per turn, you might as well have it be one of the search effects as well, just having another spell that can send and set up those cards to the graveyard all the more faster. And then the 1 Call by the Grave to finish off the spells for the main deck as well, since you really do need a good amount of your special summons, especially for your Link 1 to resolve. For the traps, I run the 1 copy of Nordic Relics Valen. Now this is just a one of, because you can search it off of Evaldi again. It's a continuous trap, so once you have it set up on the field, it's really all you'll need, just controlling an Azir monster to negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. So you have your Odin protection effect, and then also just the added activation of Svalin on the field, and then you contribute a Nordic monster to target 1 Azir monster in your graveyard and special summon it, making up for the more difficult banish effect for your Azir monsters by just being able to tribute out that other monster on your field to get it back into the field instead. And then the 2 copies of Nordic Relic Gungnir. You can banish an Azir or Nordic monster you control, target 1 card on the field, destroy it, and then during the second end phase after this activation, return that monster you banished to activate this effect into the field in face-up attack position. So another way to take care of some of your opponent's cards, and then eventually get your Nordic monster back as well, and a perfect card to chain to one of your opponent's cards effects that may try to take out your Nordic monster as well. And then also the 3 copies of Solemn Strike for more monster special summon or monster effect negation just by paying 1,500 life points, and also the 3 infinite impermanence. I don't mind the high trap lineup in the deck, because everything you use could potentially be used for the banish cost of your Gullveig, so you can find that all as usual or useful fodder for those cards. And if not, you have your Azir monster on the field, and then a bit of back row to protect it, having this huge monster on the field, and then other cards to protect your opponent trying to get rid of it, and going around its own card effects. And then for the extra deck, I run the 1 copy of Odin, Father of the Azir, 1 copy of Thor, and the 1 copy of Loki. Just needing 1 of each, that's really all you're ever going to make in the deck. You have your option of your protection on the field thanks to Odin, and then all the banish effects as well, but most of the time I believe Svalin to be the better way to get these monsters back into the field once you have this card set up as well. And then also with the play of being able to remove a Nordic Beast Tuner from your graveyard to special summon your your Aesir Thor back onto the field as well, but Thor can also negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent control once per turn, while your Odin, father of the Aesir, can activate this card effect to make it unaffected by spell and traps until the end of the turn, and Aesir Loki can, when your opponent activates a spell or trap during your battle phase, negate the activation and destroy it, and if it's a quick effect as well, and during the end phase, having the option to summon it back by banishing a Nordic Alfar tuner. While not as useful, you still have, like I said, Zavalin to be able to make use of that special summon. For some of the higher level synchros that I also run, the 1 Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, the 1 Psyframe Lord Omega, along with the 1 copy of Borreload Savage Dragon, Stellar Wind Wolfrayet, and the 1 Baron de Fleury. Don't make them as often, but I do like to have them as added backup options for our synchro plays in the deck. And then also the 3 copies of Gullveig of the Nordic Ascendant. One of your best link monsters in the deck. It just helps with the overall special summon power, being able to banish cards from your hand or field, and then special summon that many different Nordic monsters onto the field as well, in defense position for each card banished. You cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except for your Aesir monsters, and you can only normal summon, and you cannot normal or set any other monsters as well. You can only use this effect once per turn, and while this card points to an Aesir monster, your opponent cannot target that monster with card effects protecting your Nordic monster, and they cannot target this one for attack. So it's sort of like a lock as long as you have that Nordic monster pointing to the proper arrow for your Gullveig. And also the 1 copy of IP Masquerena, the 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and the 1 Apollosa to finish off the rest of the link monsters for the extra deck. As for some of the go-to plays, as I mentioned before, a lot of your setup can just be played with 1 Nordic monster in your hand and then the Hippo Carnival as well. You summon out your Nordic monster, and then you just go for the link 1 of your Gullveig. You activate Gullveig, and then you chain Hippo Carnival, giving you the chain link 2 of Hippo Carnival. So you'll summon out your 3 Hippo tokens onto the field, and then your Gullveig will resolve. So you can then banish those 3 tokens to then give you the special summon setup of the different Nordic monsters you need for your summon. So you can then go for your tuner, and then also the additional non-tuner monsters, being either your Tingnoster or the additional level 3 play for your Nordic summons, depending on what you wanted to go for. For the summons as well, you can even go for the Evaldi and then your level 2 monster setup for that play right then and there. Needing the requirements for your summon of your Thor, Lord of the Aesir, summoning it to where the arrow went as well. And the best part of this play was, since you used the Hippo Carnival and then just the 1 other Nordic monster for your summon, you still have the 3 other additional cards in your hand. So if any of them are other Nordic relics or counter traps, you have that plus the potential of a hand trap in your hand as well to make use of, that you didn't have to use for the banish costs, giving you your Aesir play plus some added backup protection for those cards from your hand and or field to protect them during your opponent's turn. Some of the other resolved effects, if you have that graveyard play, can also rely on Gull Bursty and its initial special summon setup for this card being able to substitute for any Nordic tuner as well, and then being able to special summon a Nordic monster from your hand. So if you have the Foolish Burial Goods setup for, let's say, the Nordic Relic, then you can go for the banish effect in your graveyard to then add the proper Nordic monster in your hand that you want to summon off of Gull Bursty as well. If you have the proper graveyard setup from before, being the monsters you had from that synchro summon earlier on that I mentioned, you can then normal summon out Gull Bursty and then special summon out the other monster from your hand, and then use the effect to add back Evaldi, special summoning out Evaldi, and then you can use its effect to add the Nordic Relic of choice to your hand, and then go for the level 10 synchro play once again. And since Gull Bursty can count for any of them, you can summon out one of your bigger boss monsters in the form of Odin and have that initial counter trap as well to use on the field for the banish effect to destroy one of your opponent's cards also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, I always like to update the Aesir deck. It's definitely a fan favorite from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and maybe we'll see some more support down the road. The Battle of Chaos set also should be having some reprints in the Megaton for cards from Battle of Chaos, where the newer Nordic support came from. So we might even see some higher rarity cards for the deck, or at least some easier ones to get a hold of as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.